Suppose someone takes you to court to get your shirt. Let him have your coat also. Let him have your, like, he's already won your shirt. Let him have your coat also. And for my Spanish teacher, déjale también tu abrigo. Déjale también tu abrigo. Also let him have your coat. Okay? So, this is an interesting idea here, because often we think that we are to protect our stuff. Our stuff is things that we should protect. Today's message is called Lighten Your Load. Lighten your load. And there's a wonderful quote that I just love called, "Angels can fly because they take themselves lightly." They take themselves lightly, and G.K. Chesterton was a contemporary of C.S. Lewis. Actually, he was an influence in C.S. Lewis's conversion to a spiritual person from an atheist. So, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. I don't always take myself lightly. So, suppose someone takes you to court and to get your shirt, let him have your coat also. That's the quote, that's what we're working with. The concept here is there's multiple layers in this particular verse. First of all, suppose someone takes you to court. If they take you to court, they are called what? The plaintiff, which means they have a complaint about you. Okay? And what are you called if someone takes you to court? Defendant. So you are the defendant and they are the plaintiff if they take you to court. And if you are a defendant, what do you have to be? What's the adjective of defendant? Defensive, right? So if they take you to court and they want your stuff, you have to defend. Defend, I'm going to defend my stuff. And Jesus says, not only should you go through that experience, but let them have your coat also. Jesus is saying, not only if they've won your shirt, don't just give them your shirt, give them your coat. Give them your coat too. Let them have it. So what Jesus is basically saying, if I was to summarize Jesus' message, is don't be defensive and don't be attached to your stuff. Don't be defensive and don't be attached to your stuff. Again, I am someone who doesn't always walk around treading lightly, and I'm sometimes someone who's attached to my stuff. And if you break my stuff, we're going to have a problem. If you touch my stuff, we're going to have a problem. Because it's my stuff, and you shouldn't touch it. So, we're going to look at this a little bit deeper, but I've got a sidebar for a moment. We're going to take a sidebar for a moment. Some sad news from the week. Roger Ebert passed away this week. Roger Ebert, who at 25 was an editor for the Chicago Sun and was doing sports. And then he moved over, and how I know him is from Sneak Peek Previews, or Sneak Peek, was the Siskel and Ebert show that was on, it started on NPR, and then it moved a couple different places, where they would sit in the balcony and they would critique movies. And that, I remember that show from as early as I remember watching television. They were on TV. And the thing about this particular group of people is it's the first time I think I witnessed people disagreeing in a healthy manner, where they could be both professional and responsible for their differences of opinions, but that you never had the sense that they hated each other. They would argue, but the argument was over an idea, not like you're stupid for not picking your socks up. No, so anyway, and the degrees of separation with I found. So last night, David, who usually plays bass with me, David's daughter turned 18. And so I went to her 18th birthday, and I'm sitting next to David's mom. David's mom's maiden name was Edwards, and she went to high school with Roger Ebert. And in their English class on their senior year, the English class seating chart was alphabetical. So Edward sat next to Ebert. So for the entire year, she sat next to Roger Ebert. And so all night for the birthday party, I'm hearing stories about Roger Ebert, and every year he'd go back to the high school reunion, and he would, of course, MC the high school reunion. So a very touching moment. Now, the reason why I think he was so important for me is because movies were such an important part of my growing up experience inside of my family. It's something we did as a family together. So I remember The Sound of Music, I remember going to Holiday, I remember Walt Disney's Jungle Book is the first one that I think I saw in the movie theater, because I was born in the 60s, so I wasn't able to see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was 39, so it's a little bit before I wound up seeing that on TV before okay. So Jungle Book and Herbie the car, the Love Bug, thank you, Herbie the Love Bug. So these are the things that I grew up being aware of and going with my family, and apparently my parents knew what movies to pick. They probably were reading reviews before we went, because I never remember a bad movie with the family. I never remember thinking that, oh, that was a terrible movie. The one exception to that was, I don't think they should have taken me to Jaws at 13, because I was scarred for life about going into the water. They actually said, you won't want to go in the water again, and that was true. I was like, right. Anyway, so my growing up experience going to the movies was really important, and my parents picked well. When I was a teenager and had my own paper route and was able to start going to Saturday matinees on my own with my friends, I didn't pick so well as my parents. And I remember it was 1978. There was a movie called Phantasm, and it says, if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. And I remember the scary scenes being so ridiculous. I don't even remember the friend I went with. I just remember the experience of being there with my friend. And the scary scenes were so ridiculous that we started laughing at this horror flick until there was a sprinkling of laughter throughout the movie theater. It was infectious. We actually infected everybody with the ridiculousness of laughter over this particular movie. But I remember, it's like, man, if I'm going to spend my hard-earned money on a matinee that I earned, I'm not going to go see a movie like that ever again. And I hadn't read their review, because if I'd read their review, it was basically, don't go see this movie. Don't go see this movie. So the thing is, and the other thing is, movie matinees when I was in high school were $1. They were $1 to go see a matinee, and I was offended at paying $1 for this terrible movie. So the point is, I got to know Roger Ebert because I wanted to know, how am I going to spend my money on movies and make sure that I am going to see something that's worthwhile, and I want to read what he has to say about it. And so I got into the practice of reading him on a regular basis. If there's something that I'm going to go see and spend money on, why don't I take 5 minutes and read what Roger has to say about it before I go? So that was my relationship with him. And I never formed that relationship with Siskel. I'm not sure why. I just formed that relationship with Roger Ebert. Roger Ebert was my go-to guy for whether I was going to see a movie or not. So I just like to think of him fondly this week because of his passing, and know that he was an important person in my growing up and my being an American. Movies are part of the American phenomenon, and me living in this country and being somebody who likes to go to the movies, I will miss him. So thank you, Roger. We're not done with him yet this morning, though. We'll come back and visit him a little bit more. Lighten your load. So lighten your load is about letting things go. Letting things go, letting things go. Whether they're physical things or emotional things. You know, we go get on a plane and we call it our luggage. We have a memory that somebody did something bad to us and we call it our baggage. So lighten your load can be about physical stuff. It also can be about emotional stuff. So this week, I had stuff in storage. I had stuff in storage, and I moved it from one storage facility to another storage facility because the first storage facility had increased my rent. They'd increased my rent over time till it was like $200 a month for my storage facility. I live in an apartment. I don't have a garage. So people who've got garages, they have their garage. So just imagine. My $200 a month is about what your mortgage payment would be for this portion of your house that's called your garage. So it evens out. So this week I actually went and cleared out a portion of my storage. So these are the empty containers from just Thursday and Friday. Yes, Dawn's clapping for me. You may clap if you'd like to clap for me. That's fine. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 containers. Actually, there's a few more over here, and I put them here as part of the altar. So the black storage tubs are part of the altar this morning, and we'll talk more about those in a few minutes. But I really, I had accumulated things over time that I had stopped being aware of. I'd stopped being conscious of what I had in storage. And I actually had a goal. My goal was that my grandfather had given me a silver dollar coin collection when I was about 10. And I knew it was somewhere in storage, but I didn't know where. So the goal was to find the coin collection. Because it's something else that is, I'm not a coin collector, but I have a coin collection that my grandfather gave me, but really by rights, somebody else might appreciate these coins more than I would. I don't need to divest of them. They have a little bit of emotional relationship because I remember my grandfather because of it, but really they're sitting in storage, so they're not giving me any value, any joy, anything other than they're actually costing rent. So my goal was to find the coin collection. What I did find was I found the wheel of a Prius, which I no longer own, which had been in an accident, and the wheel had been damaged. And a former roommate was driving the car when the wheel got damaged, and she didn't have the cash to pay me because it wasn't covered because of the deductible. So I paid for the wheel to be replaced. It was like about $500. And so I haven't had the Prius for 2 years now, and the wheel I've had for 4 years. I've had the wheel for 4 years thinking I'm going to sell the wheel to somebody who can straighten that dent out of the wheel. And then it's because the wheel cost like $600 for the new one. And I'm walking around with it thinking that someday I'm going to salvage this and turn it into cash and tell her, okay, we've paid down this portion of your debt to me for the wheel, which is still an outstanding, because this now reminds me every time I see it that she hasn't paid me the money that she was supposed to pay me back because she didn't have the cash at the time when she was driving my car and ran it into a median. Sorry? An island, right. She ran over a big curb. And so, first thing to go on Thursday morning was the wheel. It went to Alco Aluminum Recycling. I got $12 for it. I've probably spent $40 in storage fees for keeping it for 4 years. So, when I was in my 20s, I used to work in construction, and I found that I had accumulated over time 12 tape measures. 12 different tape measures, all in different boxes on all different places throughout. Because the thing is, if you work in construction and you need a tape measure and you forgot yours at home, you need to go down to Lowe's right then and get it because you can't function without it. So it's a tool of the trade. I just hadn't realized I had collected 6. Don't ask me how many scissors I have. I have a collection of probably half of those bins were full of books. I love books. I am a book collector. People give me books. People give me books they think that I should read. They let me, this is how they know they can fix me. They give me the book that they think I should read. Now that's not the only reason they give me books, but that is something that's naturally happening in my life, is I attract people around me who want to give me something to read. It's like, great. But I had these books in storage and they weren't going to be read. I wasn't going to read them. I wasn't going to ever read them ever again. Some of them were really pretty. Like some of them were photography books or picture books. But they weren't sitting on my coffee table. So what is a coffee table book doing in storage that serves any value? No, none, okay? So I took one of these books by one of the used bookstores and I asked the guy, I said, how much for this one? And he said, I can't give you anything for it. I said, how come? He goes, it's not something that's useful for us in inventory. And it was a really nice looking book, but he did not want to pay me money for it. I said, you know what? Can you find it a good home? Because I just don't want to throw it away. And I don't know what else to do with it. He goes, oh, you mean you're just going to donate it? I said, yeah. He goes, yes, I'll find it a good home. So it actually lifted me to find that I could divest that book and have somebody... There's a question.
No, I'm just going to tell you something.
Yes.
When I lived in Oakland before I moved, I donated 25 cases to the Oakland Library.
Wonderful.
So you can, like Alameda Library,
Yeah.
book sale.
Exactly right. They do have the thing that disheartened me about the Alameda book sale is they sell as much as they can and then they actually eliminate their inventory. So they do their best. It doesn't actually wind up on the bookshelf. Some of my books, this is my attachment, okay? If I'm going to turn a book over to the library, I want it to go up on the shelf. I think that my book should land on the shelf, and they don't always do that. Actually, no, what they do is they turn around and sell it. And then I have my skinny clothes. I had clothes that I very well knew that I was never going to wear again. Not quite so bad as the big bell bottoms, not that long ago, but you know, there's just a stack of clothes that, you know what, I'm really never going to wear these again. And some of it was style, some of it was size. So I took the clothes and I took them over to the Goodwill on Park Street. And as I'm walking through the parking lot, there's a gentleman who intercepts me as I'm moving to go into the Goodwill store through the parking lot. He intercepts me. He's got two kids, 3 or 4 years old, in the car. So he's a dad with 2 kids. And he says, excuse me, are you going to donate those clothes? I said, yes. He goes, would you mind giving them to me? I need some clothes to sell at the flea market. And I thought to myself, it didn't even take me a moment. It just went. I just extended my hand and gave them to him. Because when I give the clothes to the Goodwill, I never know what happens to them. But giving them to him, I actually knew that he was going to turn around, sell them, and help him support his family. And for me, it closed a loop that's sort of like a mystery. So what I was thinking is, next time I have something to donate, what I'm probably going to do is go find somebody who will sell it directly so that I know exactly who I've given it to so that they can benefit from it. So, I feel much lighter. And I actually can walk through my storage now. You couldn't walk through, you'd have to climb over to get through the storage. Now I feel like I'm making progress. And I brought these 3 tubs for people to challenge you to take one of the tubs with you home and find stuff that you know that you can divest yourself of. If you know that you've got some of that stuff, here's a tub. Take a tub with you. Because I don't need them. I'm now divesting of my surplus tubs. So, another little story in the news. Oh yeah, so just an interesting point. Self-storage, in 2011, self-storage industry generated $22.45 billion, which is twice the movie industry. Twice the movie industry. The movie industry is about $11 billion. Self-storage is $22 billion. And self-storage didn't exist in 1955. It started in 1956. It didn't exist, and all of a sudden now, 10% of the population has stuff in storage. In storage. Lighten your load. So, also in the news this week is what's going on with Prop 8. Now, I'm not going to tell you what side of the opinion that you should be on. Yes, we voted on this 7 years, and now it's in the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court's consideration. But this was just on February 3rd, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has filed a pair of briefs with the U.S. Supreme Court asking it to uphold California's Prop 8 and the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. The briefs were drafted by lawyers for the LDS Church here in Utah and filed January 29th before the nation's top court on behalf of the National Association of Evangelicals, the Southern Baptist Convention, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, the Romanian American Evangelical Alliance of North America, Truth in Action Ministries, and the Mormon Church. So this whole consortium of religious organizations saying Prop 8 should stay in place. Our theological perspectives, though often different, converge to support the proposition that traditional opposite-sex definition of marriage in the civil law is not only constitutional but essential to the welfare of families, children, and society. And I just really want to focus on that phrase. It's essential to the welfare of families, children, and society. Some of you know, my youngest nephew converted to the Mormon Church when he was 19. And he went on his mission. He is a full-blown, dedicated Mormon elder. And in 2007, when we were arguing, when the whole Prop 8 thing was happening, at a family reunion, he decides he's going to sit me down and have a conversation about Prop 8 and how it's essential. It's essential to the welfare of families, children, and society. Yes, he's going to have a conversation with his gay uncle about Prop 8. It did not go well. It went really badly. It went really badly. I got very angry with him because he hadn't done any research and he was quoting politics that he'd heard from his upline, from his leadership. And so that was 2007. And we probably didn't speak for a year. We probably didn't speak for a year after that. And we were hands distance apart when we ran into each other at the next family function. And it was polite but distant. Because I remember that conversation. I remember that he's a proponent for Prop 8. So I've been now wounded. And that it's back in the news is, part of the whole thing being drawn up again. Now, we have come to a place where we are civil to each other, and even from time to time we chat on the phone. But there's still like this little thing that I'm dragging around about that time in 2007. We had that fight. So back to my storage. What does that have to do with storage? Well, there was a photograph that I hadn't seen in about 20 years. This is Uncle John brushing Ryan's teeth, and he's 3 or 4. And you just notice where his hand is? He's making me open my mouth like I'm making him open his mouth. And when I came upon the photograph, nothing was present except for how much I love my nephew. Nothing was present except for how much I love him. And the whole Prop 8 thing just melted away. It's like I had forgotten that we started out loving each other. I had forgotten that I had started out being there, taking care of him. And I was one of the people that when the parents went out of town, I was there taking care of my niece and 2 nephews. And this particular photograph is impossible for me to look at that photograph and not be present to my love for my nephew. So lightening the load includes letting go of things that have happened, that we've held in emotional storage. The things that have happened that we've held in emotional storage of somebody's offense to us. Someone has offended us. Someone has wounded us. Someone has taken us to court and sued us. Someone has said something at a party that distressed us. And we walk around with that thing that they said to us.